Tone, it's great to have you back in Malta. So what brings you here?
So, well, look at it. We're on a beautiful yacht in Malta. You can see the background. Really like it here. Been here a couple of times in 2019 where we did a Bitcoin conference here called Understanding Bitcoin. So I just wanted to follow up with one of the hotels, have a better look at it in order to prepare to bring the conference back here in 2022 because Malta is just lovely.
You used to travel a lot. What does the travel lifestyle mean to you, and where have you been recently?
The traveling lifestyle meant so much to me. I grew up as a foreign immigrant to the United States. Grew up fairly poor, eventually got a nice job on Wall Street, but other than traveling through Austria and Italy when I was a small child, I didn't really get to travel until I was already in my very late 20s, early 30s. And I really liked it. So the first opportunity I had to quit that desk job and start traveling and find a way to work while I'm traveling, just to experience the world, has been incredible. COVID has made that life very challenging, and I'm hoping to still find a way to get back to that in 2022. But some of my more favorite countries have been Hong Kong and Singapore, which are now heavily locked down, and also former Soviet republics like Ukraine and Georgia are some of my favorites, and Asian countries like Vietnam and Thailand. And right now, I'm seeing what's happening in Australia and Canada and how aggressively they are locking down their population. And those are countries I no longer want to go back to the rest of my life because of the way they are treating their population in countries that are supposed to be Western and pro-freedom, and they have turned into the complete opposite of that.
All these places that you mention have a lot of differences between them, so I'm wondering if you're using Bitcoin where you travel to these places?
Rarely. Bitcoin right now is still going through a stage where it's appreciating a lot, and spending that Bitcoin isn't the best use of the Bitcoin, especially when you're spending that Bitcoin in a way where you know the person receiving it is just going to sell it because they need their local fiat currency to pay their bills and expenses. So I try not to spend any Bitcoin, and I spend government money because I still earn government money through my businesses. And that's the money I want to spend, and I want to save that Bitcoin for the future, or when I know someone believes in Bitcoin, and if I spend Bitcoin with them, they will actually hold on to that Bitcoin. That, if I know that's the person's mentality, I am way more likely to spend Bitcoin with that person.
Have you been to El Salvador yet? And what do you make of the protests going on there right now?
Yeah, so I have not yet been to El Salvador. It is on my list. El Salvador wasn't really high on my list of countries prior to what they did by making Bitcoin legal tender, and now they are very high up on my list. I've been to many countries in Latin America and South Central America, and I do like them a lot. I do need to go to El Salvador. I know they have an event coming up in November, though that conflicts with an event in Malta that I'm supposed to be speaking at, so maybe I'll be able to manage both of them somehow. And it's great what they're doing. I am looking forward to going down there. And when I'm down there, of course, I plan to support the local economy with some Bitcoin.
What positive or negative effects will the legal tender law have on an international level?
So it was interesting that they went straight to making Bitcoin legal tender. So legal tender, it's good and a little bit of bad. So the best part about making Bitcoin legal tender is that you just told your entire population that you are welcome to use Bitcoin. You will not be labeled a criminal. You will not be labeled a money launderer. You are welcome to use it without fear that the government's going to come and get you. At the same time, by making it legal tender, you're almost forcing everyone to accept it. And Bitcoin is for the more technologically inclined. And I'm sure there is a percentage of the local population that is just not technologically ready to accept it. And they don't want to get in an argument with their customer who wants to pay in Bitcoin and has the legal standing to force you to accept Bitcoin, but you're just not technologically ready. It's like, imagine your grandma being told that she will never get a paper piece of mail again and that she has to accept email and she has no idea how to do it. So that is the potential problem with legal tender law. But on the other hand, he is helping his population a lot by almost pushing them into Bitcoin, which will make them significantly wealthier. And people will learn that in a very short amount of time as the price of Bitcoin continues to rise. So all in all, it's a lot more good than bad, but ideally, he didn't need to make it legal tender, just needed to announce that Bitcoin is welcomed and any business is welcome to use it. Anyone is welcome to accept it. Anyone is welcome to spend it. You do not have to worry about any criminal charges for using Bitcoin. And the country itself is going to migrate its strategic reserve savings into Bitcoin, just like corporations are doing, MicroStrategies, even Tesla, Square, and many others will join as well. So that could have been another option. And then you can make it legal tender in the future when your population is more comfortable with that. Because there are some protests that are happening against Bitcoin being legal tender. And a lot of these things are very political. And I would love an investigation as to who is funding these protests. Because you can probably find some very nasty global players that don't like Bitcoin that might be funding these anti-Bitcoin protests.
Let's talk about trading. Would you suggest a beginner to invest or to buy and hold?
Well, it's not about being a beginner. It's about how much time do you have? Because if you think trading is easy and you're going to get to just sit on a yacht all day making money by trading, that's a very unrealistic expectation. The reality is trading is a profession, trading is a job, and it can be a dangerous job because this job actually loses you money if you are bad at your job. And when most people start trading, they tend to get stuck in a basement with 3 monitors and not much sleep. But if you are willing to put in the work, if you are willing to put in the research, you can be a successful trader, but the path to that is not easy. That is why most people end up, instead of doing it all themselves and making their own decisions, they end up following other people. They end up giving their money to someone else to trade for them. They get caught up in these scams. When you give your money to someone else to trade it for you, that institution has to be regulated so that they don't steal your money. And if you made it past the barrier of giving your money to an honest, reputable entity, not single person, entity to trade for you, there is still a high probability that person is going to lose your money. But at least they didn't steal it, they just lost it. It doesn't change the fact that you didn't gain any money. So these are challenges. Those that are willing to take the time and learn and be their own traders have a shot at being successful, but it's all about how much effort you put in. For the majority of the people, the best thing they can do is to dollar cost average into Bitcoin. Try to take 5, 10, 20% of your paycheck, put it into Bitcoin. Try to offer a product or a service and sell it for Bitcoin. Try to just buy it if you have to, but slowly set it up. Hey, you know what? Buy me 200 euros worth of Bitcoin every month, 500 euros worth of Bitcoin every month. I'm going to move into a slightly smaller apartment so I can buy a little more Bitcoin, because there is still so much growth in the price to happen before the world adopts it. And I do expect the world to adopt Bitcoin as a currency.
Inflation is something everyone is getting concerned about. What is inflation, or how would you explain it to someone who has no idea about it?
Sure. Inflation is basically theft of your savings because the governments continue to print an unreasonable amount of money in order to support the economy or in order to push their agendas through because they need money. Everybody needs money. And there's basically three ways to acquire money. One, you provide a good or a service that someone else is willing to pay for. You could tax people on their productivity, on their knowledge. That's the taxes on your investment, taxes on your inheritance, which you've earned. Or you can just print the money. And especially since COVID, where the government shut down the economy, they had to print a lot of money to support people that they told are not able to work because they told them you can't go to work, so we will just pay you not to work. But where does that money come from? And the government is printing that money. And because of that, a lot of the things that you buy are going up in price, and that devalues the dollar, the euro, and every other currency, but they're all devaluing against each other. So the exchange rate between the euro and the dollar pretty much stays approximately the same amongst all the other countries as well. But other things are going up. And there's only so much land in the world, and people want to protect their money at the bank, so they tend to buy land. And now there's Bitcoin. And I believe Bitcoin will be the best inflation protection hedge, better than precious art, better than land, better than yachts. And that is causing also food prices to rise. And there's also productivity things, because when you shut down the supply chain, when you shut things down, people work less. And when people work less goods get produced. And if less goods get produced, then the value of those goods starts to rise because there is demand for a smaller number of goods. And all of that gets wrapped up in inflation, and that's why when you go to the supermarket today, the prices are a little bit higher, currency is being devalued, and it's really bad. And the best way to stop inflation is to force governments to spend within their means. And hopefully that doesn't lead to more taxes, because that lowers people's willingness to work. So governments need to govern less and let the free market do its thing. And hopefully people will just start using Bitcoin, which cannot be inflated, because there will only be 21 million Bitcoin, but they get very divisible. So there is enough Bitcoin for the entire world. And the sooner people start using it, the better off they will be.
You spoke about many things that relate to Malta in a way. We're part of the Eurozone, and inflation is based on various countries being part of the same monetary union. And as well, when speaking about the scarcity of land, we're living on a very small island, and the prices are quite high at the moment here. During your conference, Understanding Bitcoin, you gave a presentation on hyperinflation and the Eurozone, and how Greece had problems with capping on their ATM withdrawals. Do you think this is going to happen again, especially, post-pandemic?
I do. Sun's coming out. Time to put some sunglasses on. I do. So it was actually a financial crisis in Europe that got me very interested in Bitcoin. It wasn't what was happening in the United States. Now, I was working on Wall Street during the 2008 financial crisis. The company I was working at was Bear Stearns, which went bankrupt during the financial crisis. And I was working there, then I transitioned into JP Morgan. But it wasn't until 2013 when I really realized the power of Bitcoin. I've heard about Bitcoin as far back as 2011. Maybe even I heard about it in very late 2010 during WikiLeaks news, where WikiLeaks was announcing to the world the atrocities the US was doing during the war in Iraq mostly. And they got shut down by Visa, MasterCard, PayPal. and it was a donation-based news service. And they had to resort to taking Bitcoin donations because the government could not stop those transactions. That's when I heard about Bitcoin for the first time. But it wasn't until 2013 when it really clicked based on what happened in Cyprus. When the Cyprus banks shut down and the government confiscated 50% of everybody's money above 100,000 euro, I realized that Bitcoin was the only unconfiscatable asset humans have ever owned. And today I own unconfiscatable.com, and we have a conference called Unconfiscatable just based on that realization that I had. And I've been promoting that side of Bitcoin as the most important aspect of Bitcoin. When my family fled communist Russia in the late 80s, we were only allowed to leave the country, never to come back, with 100 US dollars worth of money. No matter how much wealth you had, the government kept it all, and you and your family gets to leave with $100 per person to start a new life somewhere else, right? So this is what Bitcoin now eliminates. You can store as much money as you like in your head, and you can take that across any border. Because the technology to get into your head to steal that does not yet exist. Hopefully it won't. But I don't know, maybe, what was that movie? Inception, right? So maybe we'll be in that world one day. So Cyprus really sparked my interest in Bitcoin with this unconfiscatability feature, because I said, wait a minute, I have over $100,000 in the bank. I have a job that pays me over $100,000 a year. How does the bank and the government just take your money out of the bank for their own personal use? And that is what drove me into Bitcoin. Then what happened in Greece was another disaster where they shut down the banks as well, and you were only allowed to withdraw 20 euros a day, and then eventually 400 euros for the week. And this is the kind of stuff as part of my presentation where I teach people Bitcoin stops this from happening to your money. And so far since then, Europe's been okay, but I've always anticipated the breakup of the European common currency, because it just can't work in the long term, because all these countries are so different. Germany and Greece and Italy, they don't even speak the same language, and they have different cultures, they have their own economies to manage, and they are stuck on the same currency. Now, when that currency becomes more global and Bitcoin, it's a little bit different because no one controls that. But I do believe the European common currency will eventually break up. And as that is happening, countries like Greece, like Italy, like Spain, know that once they go back to their own currencies, their currencies are going to greatly devalue. So as those rumors begin, everyone is going to be converting their euros into Bitcoin. And that's going to be one of the biggest drivers in Bitcoin, where the price can virtually double or triple or quadruple in a week, based on a fear that a country will either leave the European Union, or the Eurozone, I should say, with the common currency, or get kicked out, though the European Union doesn't really want to kick anybody out, but you never know. And that will eventually happen, and I'm expecting that to happen this decade.
It's extremely interesting to see how events matter, how much events matter when it comes to local currencies. And learning about Bitcoin opens our eyes to things that we would take for granted on a daily basis. We're just used to having money. And what interested me is why you would think that the coin of choice should be Bitcoin.
That is a good question. It's not whether I think it should be, it's that I believe that it will be. Because Bitcoin is the only cryptocurrency that is truly decentralized. No one controls it. No one can change its supply. Altering anything in Bitcoin, even the smallest thing, is very difficult. And Bitcoin, yes, Bitcoin, the technology of Bitcoin where people say, oh, it's old, it's already over a decade old, it's not moving fast enough, it's not adopting to the latest thing fast enough. But that's not where its value is. Its value is in its security. The fact that you cannot alter Bitcoin code easily is what makes it trusted. It's this concept of trustless trust. You are trusting the fact that Bitcoin is trustless and nobody controls it. And none of the other digital currencies, cryptocurrencies, have that trust. I would never put my life savings in any other cryptocurrencies, not Ethereum, not any of the others, because I just don't believe that they are decentralized. I believe there are a small group of people that can get on a phone call and alter anything they like. I believe that the regulators can get them. I believe that governments can put pressure on the people in charge of those coins because they are just too centralized. And it's unfortunate that people try to make easy money diversifying themselves into these other cryptocurrencies, because on a longer term time scale, all of those other cryptocurrencies are just like the traditional fiat money systems. They're no different than the central bank digital currencies that are coming, because governments want to eliminate cash. Cash is a big problem. Paper cash is a big problem for governments because they have less control over people and over people's spending and what they buy and over their efforts to make taxation. So they are trying to make their central bank digital currencies to eliminate cash. Eliminating cash eliminates ATMs. It eliminates a run on the bank. It allows them to set any monetary policy they like. It allows them to have taxation to the point where we tax you and then we give you whatever is left back to you. And these other cryptocurrencies are no different than that. I believe they have leaders that can do exactly the same thing. And that's why I believe Bitcoin is our only shot at separating governments from the control of the money that we use.
As someone who's still learning, I would say that my reason for turning to Bitcoin is because there's less fraud. So to me, it's Bitcoin as opposed to the normal monetary system, including online payments. And fraud is a major threat here. But what about anti-money laundering? How would you fight against this crime when...
I do not see money laundering as a crime. I believe that the money laundering laws is what is holding society back. With a finite hard currency like Bitcoin, it's going to be hard separating people from their money. But I believe that a person's money is like a person's arm, and they should have free will to use that arm. They should have free will to use their money. It's not up to another person's business how you are using your money. If you use that money for an illegal act, you have to go after that person for the illegal act, not the money. I think the problem is the money laundering laws, the know your customer laws, the KYC laws. I believe that if you are soliciting me for money, and there is a lot of fraud that happens. I mean, people try to steal Bitcoin all the time because you just can't get it back. If you are soliciting me for money, whether you're going to manage my money, whether you're going to protect my money, hold my money, you should be regulated. The government should be you should be scrutinized because you are taking my money and you are now responsible for my money, so you should be regulated. But I should not be regulated. I should have free ability to give my money to anyone I want without being turned a criminal. Only those that are holding or investing my money for me should be scrutinized by the government in order to protect me on who I'm giving my money to. But in general, KYC laws apply in the other direction. And the government wants to control how you spend your money. And I think that is very wrong. Very, very wrong.